Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Nature of Teaching Professional Development webinar series. My name is Lauren Teamy, and I am the Ag and Natural Resources Educator for Purdue Extension in Delaware County. Today's webinar will cover the unit Trees of the Midwest. This is a 30-minute webinar offering 3 lesson plans that will teach students about the life cycle of a tree, how to ID trees from Indiana, as well as the products that they use on a daily basis that are made from wood. Joining me today is Rachel Rawls. She's the Ag and Natural Resources Educator and the County Extension Director for St. Joseph County. Today, she's going to be introducing the unit, followed by some videos of the individual lessons and activities. I will finish the webinar highlighting additional resources and the procedure to obtain your certificate of completion for the webinar. Rachel, I will now turn things over to you.
Thanks, Lauren. Today, we're going to talk about trees of the Midwest. And we will be covering lessons 1, 2, and 3 of this unit. We will talk about the grade levels and standards that each lesson covers, how long each lesson should be, every required material for your lesson, and then we will finish with videos that show you how to do the hands-on procedures. So the estimated time for all 3 of these lessons, they're designed to be 45 minutes long each. And these are the standards for lesson 1. As you can see, they cover English, language arts standards, and next generation science standards. The required materials for lesson 1 are really simple. The only thing you need are 6 copies of the tree needs cards that are included in the packet. And now we will watch the video on the tree life cycle.
Hello, my name is Dana Gadican, Agricultural and Natural Resource Educator with Purdue Extension in Vigo County. This is Trees in the Midwest, Lesson 1, Activity 1. This activity allows instructors to guide students through the life cycle of a tree using an interactive story. While you talk about seeds, the students sit on the ground with their knees tucked into their chest. The instructor then reads the following lines. Like an egg, seeds are fragile. Sometimes trees come up with ways to protect their seeds. Some seeds grow fast so animals don't have time to eat them. Some taste bad or make you sick. Some trees make a lot of seeds at once so animals cannot eat them all. Sometimes trees need animals to eat their seeds to get them caught on their fur for seeds to disperse and grow. Some seeds produce their own nutrients to provide plants with energy that will grow them into seedlings. This is similar to the yolk inside a baby animal's egg. While you talk about seedlings, have students sit on their feet. Read the following storylines. Like babies, seedlings are really small trees that just grew out of their seeds. They are very fragile and need exactly the right amount of water, nutrients, and sun to keep them growing. They look a lot like adult trees, but are not exactly the same. While you talk about saplings, have the students kneel with their arms in the air. Read the following storylines. Like children, saplings are big enough to do some things, but are not fully grown. Saplings are kind of like you. They cannot produce seeds like adult trees can. They are taller than seedlings and are starting to reach their branches and roots away from the trunks. They look a lot like adult trees, but are not exactly the same. While you talk about adult trees, have the students stand up tall with their arms up in the air like tree branches. Read the following storylines. Like grown-up people, adult trees can do everything. They're usually big and tall. They can make seeds. Unlike people, trees keep growing even when they are adults. This activity also takes students through the life cycle of a tree. It introduces them to different parts of the tree and has them work together as a single tree to collect light, water, and nutrients to grow from a seed into an adult. Create a large open space on the floor in your classroom or go outside if the weather permits. Place all the sun tree need cards at one end of the open space and all the water and nutrient cards at the other end of the open space. Have one student act as the seed and sit in the middle of the space with their knees tucked into their chest, facing the water and nutrient cards. We're going to plant one seed, represented by a student, in the middle of the floor, and that one seed is going to use nutrients and water in order to grow. Bringing two more students onto the floor, the roots and the trunk. Our student who is the roots will pass water and nutrient cards up to the branches and the trunk. This represents resources moving from the roots to the leaves. Our student who is the branches will set aside the water and nutrient cards that they receive from the roots. They will begin to use sunlight in order to grow, still using nutrients and water. Our branches are going to use a sun resource card. This will represent tree leaves capturing sunlight and using water and nutrients the roots have sent up to them to make energy with the sun to send to the rest of the tree. This is called photosynthesis. More and more students are going to help that tree grow using nutrients, water, and sunlight. More students will join in, passing resource cards both ways, sitting behind the branches and extending the trunk. Until all the students are on the floor. Start adding a few used cards back to their respective sides of the space. Water, nutrients, or sunlight. Remember that all the energy that trees gather is passed on to animals and decomposers that consume them. And of course, we wrap up with a discussion question, like what if our tree runs out of resource cards, or what if our tree was taller and didn't have as much access to light? Finally, we ask a question about both activities, which is what do trees need to survive, and are seedlings, saplings different from adult trees? I hope you enjoyed acting out the life cycle of a tree with this interactive story. Have fun!
All right, that was lesson 1, activity 1 and 2. Now we will move on to lesson 2. So lesson 2 covers more standards for different grade levels. So they also cover English language arts standards and next generation science standards. Lesson 2, like I said, is also 45 minutes long and requires a few more materials this time. You will need one tree field guide printed on cardstock per student. The cardstock is really important for them to write on. It's easier. They'll also need a clear plastic sleeve per student to collect their leaves and put them in there. A 3-hole puncher, a spool of yarn, a pair of scissors per student, one glue stick per student, one pen or pencil per student, and enough newspaper and books for each student to press their leaf specimens. We will now watch the procedure for the hands-on activities for lesson 2 about tree ID.
Hi, my name is Amanda Mosman. I'm an Ag and Natural Resource Extension Educator in Warwick County. I am here to introduce Lesson 2, Tree ID, as part of our Trees in the Midwest curriculum with the nature of teaching. Hope by the end of this little tutorial that you'll be a little bit more comfortable incorporating this lesson into your classroom. So this is an overview of the entire unit, each one of our lessons. So lesson 2 here will be about 45 minutes. Goes through a little bit of the vocabulary terms that the kids will use during this time. Our main unit objectives through this entire thing is the dichotomous key is really where lesson 2 comes to play to meet that objective, teaching the kids how to use those types of keys to identify common tree species in their backyard. Because we're using the dichotomous key, encouraging kids to write descriptions and start to use those vocabulary words, lesson 2 is pretty heavy on the language arts standards and has a little bit of the next generation science standards as well. For lesson 2, We're going to talk a lot about a leaf blade, which is that really green fleshy part of the leaf. Most of the photosynthesis occurs there. That's how a majority of trees get identified, but sometimes they can look very similar from species to species. Each blade may or may not have a lobe, which is a projection of a division of a blade. Lobes are either major or they could be fairly minor. They could just be very small, like bumpy edges. Petiole, that's the stem of a leaf, and that's how that leaf attaches back to a twig. A fasciole is for evergreen, or pine needles, and how they attach back. You're going to want to explain the different tree parts. So we talk a lot about and focus a lot about the seed and focus a lot about the leaf, but in this section, we encourage you to review that the roots act like straws, that they're bringing up water and nutrients from the ground. The trunk of the tree is actually made into two different parts of wood. Each has their own specific purpose. Some bringing up, other things bringing it down. The outer bark acts like a shield to keep it protected from weather, animals, fire. Want to talk a little bit about how the leaves are the most important part because they're gathering photosynthesis, creating energy for that tree to continue through its life cycle. The dichotomous key is what we use, scientists, natural resource professionals. When we're out in the field, we use dichotomous keys to make sure that we're IDing the proper tree. We've created a very simplified version for you to use in the classroom. It's 3 questions apiece, so you'll start with question 1, answer it. Depending on that answer, you may go to question 2, you may go to question 3. It reminds me a little bit of a choose your own adventure book. So always start at number 1, read A and B, follow the instructions until you get the most appropriate answer. For lesson 2, it's about 45 minutes. The required materials for this is the tree field guide. You're going to want to print those 12 pages on cardstock. For each student, you're going to need a clear plastic sleeve for each one of those field guides. That's when our leaves and our seeds are going to go, so that'll hold them well. A 3-hole puncher, you're going to attach those with some yarn. Another good thing to accumulate ahead of time, encourage the kids to maybe help out with that, is to bring in some newspaper. Black and white newspaper works best, and some heavy books as we do the leaf press activity. For lesson 2, we encourage to go ahead and just start with the preparation of the tree guide and do that in small groups. Make sure that the kids are binding the pages, using the 3-hole punch, using the yarn, creating their tree field guides together. After that, you can introduce the vocabulary lesson. We encourage to go ahead and just divide students into groups of 4 or 6. That tends to facilitate some discussion and smaller group activities. Have the students examine each page of that field guide and start to discuss the unique characteristics of each species. They're going to start using the dichotomous key to take the seeds down and put them on the right tree ID pages, and they'll also do that with the leaves that you have as well. Encourage students to use complete sentences because that's really what's going to drive home those language arts standards. Have students cut the seed pictures out, put those to the correct page, and then finally you can walk students through how to press leaves activity and make sure that those get attached. So this is the tree field guide. I'm just going to breeze through this pretty quick. This is what it looks like. It has a table of contents. The parts of the leaf are included here, so they do have a picture and a good definition of each one of the vocabulary words they're using. Here is a way to describe leaves as we try to get them just started on how to describe them as they might use their own descriptors in the coming pages. An example of the oak, we have some fun facts up there so the kids can start to identify, where they fit into the ecosystem. Plenty of space down here for description. And then this little picture here, once we get to the seed pages, they can go ahead and glue that picture to this page. Maple, same thing. Tulip poplar, our state tree. And our only evergreen in this key is going to be our pine. So here's the dichotomous key. So this is what the students, they can start to distinguish which species is which, and then the seeds as well. So here's the seed page. Each one of these will get cut out and glued to those appropriate boxes on pages 3 through 6. So how to press leaves. This could be a fun outdoor activity for your class. I encourage it outside of the classroom that they do it from home to collect leaves from trees from around the schoolyard or their neighborhood. Make sure that they gather fresh, not rotten or moldy leaves. Make sure the surfaces of the leaves are dry, so collection's best not done after a rain. Place that single leaf in between two pieces of newspaper. Place the newspaper and the leaf into a hard flat surface like the desk and make sure to lay a heavy flat book over their top. Encourage kids not to touch that for a couple of days to allow those leaves to dry and press properly. When the leaves are dried and pressed, you can glue them onto the leaf press sheet on page 10 and write a small description underneath. This is the teacher key, so each one of these pages includes some example descriptions, the correct seed identification glued to each page. Have some fun examples of different field guides that kids might be able to use or families might be able to use to encourage this type of education outside. One of my favorite ones to use in the classroom is a Fandex family field guide. So this is kind of a fun example here. You can see they've got the leaf shapes, it's got different types of bark, it's got the seed ID. It has a lot of descriptors on the back and how to ID these pages. So this is just a really neat guide to be able to add to the lesson. One of the other ones that we like to use is the 50 Trees of Indiana book. This is going to cover the 50 most common trees that they'll find in Indiana. Most of these they can find in their backyard, and this would be a great guide to have in your classroom. Well, that's the end of my description for this lesson, so hopefully there's a few tips and it's clear enough to be able to successfully complete in your classroom. It's a very fun lesson. I very much enjoy it, teaching it to several different grades. I hope you will too.
All right, now we move on to lesson 3, which is called What is Good? Why We Need Trees. So this lesson will cover different English and language arts standards. This really is a lesson that gets kids thinking about wood products that they use every day in their daily lives and uses stories to drive that home. So it uses a lot of English language arts standards. So the only required materials in this lesson is one with wood storyboard sheet per group. So you'll have about 4 to 6 students in each group. One group will get one storyboard so that they can all write together. They also get one without wood storyboard per group as well. And then enough writing utensils and coloring utensils for each group of students to use. This is the procedure for the hands-on activities for What is Good? Why We Need Trees.
Hi, my name is Rachel Rawls. I am the Agriculture and Natural Resources Educator in St. Joseph County. Today I will be showing you the activities for Lesson 3 on What is Good? Why We Need Trees. Before we get started with the activities, I want to bring your attention to the teacher's notes found at the beginning of this section. Our activities will focus on wood products that are made from trees. Your students will use the storyboards twice as 2 different activities and finish by creating a skit. In the next slide, I will show you the procedure for completing this lesson, which starts out by having a conversation with your students about the many uses of trees. If your students are finding it difficult to think of different wood products, you can prompt them by using this list of common tree products as a way to progress your conversation. Today I will show you 2 different activity sheets that your students will complete as part of this lesson. We will have 2 types of storyboards, one called With Wood Storyboard, where students will list common wood products found in certain rooms in their homes and how those products help them throughout the day. They will also work on another storyboard which focuses on how their daily lives would change if they weren't able to use those wood products. This is called the Without Wood Storyboard. Once your students are finished writing their storyboards and have shared their ideas with the class, spend 10 minutes having students write a skit that focuses on either storyboard. This is a copy of the blank With Wood storyboard that you will provide your students. Each group only needs one sheet and will work together to create the story. In the empty boxes, students can draw the different types of rooms that are listed. In the lines below the boxes, they can begin to write the parts of their stories that focus on those specific rooms. In the following slide, I will show you an example of a completed storyboard. This is an example of what a completed storyboard may look like. I have spent time sketching different rooms, which helps me think about different products in those rooms that are made from wood. In my bedroom, I realized that my nightstand and bed were made from wood. When I went to the kitchen for breakfast, I realized that I store my food in wooden cabinets. I even realized that the cardboard box that stores my cereal is also made from wood. In the dining room, I realized that my table and chairs were made from wood. Finally, when I went to school, I realized that my pencils and notebook paper were also made from trees. This activity helps students think about the different items in each room of their house that are made from wood products. Once students are finished writing their storyboards, have a few groups share out loud with the rest of the class. This is a copy of the blank without wood storyboard that you will provide your students. Each group only needs one sheet and will work together once again to create the story. In the empty boxes, students can draw the types of rooms that are listed, but they are not allowed to draw anything that is made with wood. In the lines below the boxes, they can write their stories that focus on those specific rooms, but they are now faced with the dilemma of not using wood products. In the following slide, I will show you an example of a completed without wood storyboard. Here you can see that I drew the same settings without wood products in the pictures. When I drew my bedroom, I didn't know where I was going to sleep. When I drew my kitchen, the cabinets that stored my food were gone. I could only eat what was in the refrigerator. When I went to the dining room, I ended up standing to eat my breakfast because there was nowhere to sit. Finally, when I left for school, I grabbed my laptop, but it was dead, so I had to search for my charger. As you can see, this activity helps kids realize that wood products are found throughout their homes and they use them on a daily basis without noticing it. Once the students are finished with these two storyboards, ask them to take 10 minutes to come up with a skit that focuses on one of their storyboards. They can do a skit on the with wood or without wood story. Thank you for watching this video on the activities from the Wood is Good lesson, and I hope your students will enjoy learning about why we need trees.
Great. Thank you so much, Rachel, for going through all of those for us. That's a lot of information. And of course, this is living on our YouTube page, so you can always come back and check it out again. So I want to thank you all for joining us for the Nature of Teaching Professional Development webinar entitled Trees of the Midwest. That is educating students about the life cycle of a tree, how to ID trees from Indiana, as well as the products that they use on a daily basis that are made from wood. If you enjoyed this webinar, I encourage you to click on the card in the top right of your screen to visit our Nature of Teaching YouTube channel. Here you can view a sneak peek of some different lesson plans that are directly related to the webinar that you just completed. To obtain your certificate of completion for this webinar, please click on the second card in the top right of your screen. Here you will be directed to a short Qualtrics survey to provide us some feedback on the program. Once that's completed, you'll be automatically emailed your certificate of completion, which looks like the one here. So we hope that you enjoyed learning with us today and consider participating in additional professional development webinars offered by the Nature of Teaching team. Until then, thank you for engaging youth with nature.